In partnership with parents in the community, Birmingham Public Schools will provide educational excellence that empowers students to cultivate their individual brilliance and positively impact the world.
Good evening and welcome. I hope everyone had a great break. Today is Tuesday, February 25th, and this is the meeting of the Birmingham Board of Education. Our first order of business is roll call. Tracy?
Trustee Zamet?
Oh, here.
Trustee Spencer? Here. Trustee Rass?
Here.
Trustee Tajani?
Here.
Trustee Joseph?
Here.
Trustee Hokumer?
Here.
Trustee Ajdu?
Present.
Thank you, Tracy. Trustee Tajani, could you please read our vision and board norms?
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. You good? Our vision is all students at Birmingham will realize their full potential, think critically, and champion an innovative tomorrow. Our board norms are to be respectful and reflective, be prepared, no surprises, ask questions and seek to understand opinions, assume a positive intent, and understand and respect the role of trustee.
Thank you. At this point of our meeting, I would like to turn it over to Dr. Roberson for tonight's recognitions.
Good evening. We are excited because we have a full house. We get to recognize the Seaholm water polo team. And I'm going to ask Principal Mike Wicker to come to the podium to talk a bit about the team this year.
Thank you, Dr. Roberson. It is with immense pride that we are here to celebrate the remarkable achievements of the Seaholm water polo team. Many of you probably don't know, by looking at me, that I was once on the Seaholm water polo team and had a fitful 1 year as a Seaholm water polo coach many years ago. But this season has been nothing short of extraordinary, and the hard work and dedication of our athletes deserves to be recognized and applauded. These boys right here competed in 17 morning practices before school even started, swam roughly 90,000 yards, played 42 games, and scored 559 goals this season. First and foremost, let's take a moment to acknowledge the team as a whole. For the first time since 2019, the Maples finished first place in districts, beating Troy United, Walled Lake, Lake Orion, Grand Blanc, and our rivals down the street, Groves. This is a testament to not only the skill and determination of each player, but also the teamwork and sportsmanship that define our program. Our commitment to excellence has truly paid off. Following our district triumph, we hosted the East Region Tournament. Seaholm knocked off Dexter High School and number 7 ranked Ann Arbor Huron to reach the championship game where we played number 1 ranked Ann Arbor Pioneer. The Maples reached the championship game for the first time in over 30 years, finishing second in the region. At the state tournament, Seaholm finished 6th place with 2 nail-biter games, very, very close. Competing at this level is no small task, and you've represented our school with pride and tenacity. I'd also like to take a moment to highlight our outstanding performances of our individual players. The Michigan Water Polo Association acknowledged 5 of our players as Player of the Week throughout the season. These players are Liam Goff, Dylan Layer, Cullen Nelson, Alex Marina, and Hudson Kasiba. We had 2 players demonstrate exceptional talent and skill, earning all-region and all-state honors. Sophomore Dylan Layer earned first team all-region, first team all-region tournament, second team all-state, and second team all-state tournament. And senior Liam Goff earned first team all-region, second team all-region tournament, second team all-state, and second team all-state tournament. Both of these players have earned every single postseason award possible, showing that Seaholm can compete and be successful with the best in the state. As we reflect on the season, let us remember that these accomplishments were made possible through teamwork, discipline, and unwavering commitment to each other. You have not only become better athletes, but also forged lifelong friendships and memories that will last long beyond the pool. In closing, I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to our coaching staff, head coach Hannah Cole, who can stand up.
I'm going to have her come up.
Oh, you're going to have her come up, and we're going to get pictures in just a moment. And then assistant coaches Abby Parsons, Joe Perham, and Kevin Berkowitz. We also want to thank our parents and supporters who believed in our team and provided guidance and encouragement every step along the way. Together, we celebrate not just a season of victories, but a season of growth and unity. Congratulations again to our water polo team for an incredible season. We can't wait to see what we will achieve next year. Get up and get some pictures, guys.
Congratulations, gentlemen.
And does Coach want to say anything?
Oh, no, he said it all.
Okay. Come on.
Some glamour shots, guys.
Oh, you don't want to do a photo?
Not particularly.
Oh, wait, one more. Can we give them another round of applause? It's an amazing season. We also have another recognition, and this recognition is for Nicole McKinney, who is our board member who left the board in December 30th. She was on the board for 6 years, and as we always do when we have a board member leave our ranks, we always recognize them with a resolution. She could not be here this evening, but we still want to read the resolution to commend her for her service. And the resolution of appreciation for Nicole McKinney, whereas Nicole McKinney has demonstrated thoughtful, competent, and caring service to the community, students, parents, staff, and educators of Birmingham Public Schools from January 2019 until December 2024. And whereas, during her tenure, Trustee McKinney has contributed significantly to the governance and strategic direction of the district, fostering an environment of excellent inclusivity and educational advancement. And whereas Nicole McKinney has served as a member or liaison to the Birmingham African American Family Network and the Athletic Advisory Board. Furthermore, as an appointee by Governor Gretchen Whitmer, Trustee McKinney represented school board members on the State Teacher Tenure Commission. And whereas Nicole McKinney is a proud student of Birmingham Public Schools, proud parent of a Birmingham Public School student, and actively participated in her students' academic and athletic activities, including being an active member of Greenfield Elementary's PTA. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education, on behalf of the entire district, extends its heartfelt gratitude and appreciation to Trustee Nicole McKinney for her exemplary service and contributions to Birmingham Public Schools. I ask board members if you would give a motion on this resolution to show appreciation to Trustee Nicole McKinney.
I motion to recognize Trustee Nicole McKinney, her recognition.
I second the motion.
Thank you.
All those in favor of appreciating Nicole McKinney for her 6 years of service, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
So in addition to this resolution, she also gets this nice little bell. I don't know what she's going to do with it other than put it on the mantle, but she has it as a congratulations. So again, she couldn't be here this evening, but we do wish her the best for her volunteer service to this district.
Can I just say one thing? So Nicole and I ran together 6.5 years ago, whatever it was. And, you know, obviously, we became friends, and I would just like to say, because she's not here, so maybe she'll tune in and listen, that I always appreciated Nicole's honesty. She gave you her perspective every time. Sometimes it was different than what I thought it would be, but she was very honest, very transparent, and she truly did always make decisions that were in the best interest of kids. So, Nicole, I appreciated you all the time you served, and I appreciated your friendship.
I echo, Amy, your sentiments. Nicole, Amy, and I all ran together, so we have known each other for probably 7 years now, and it has been a true honor and pleasure serving with her. I hope she does tune in tonight. And I just commend her for not only being a fellow trustee, but an amazing mother who is very supportive of her child's education and athletic careers. So, Nicole, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
I would like to say something about Nicole as well. When I came in, obviously, she was already in, I believe, 2 years, and it was through COVID when we had virtual meetings, so I didn't really meet any trustee in the beginning, but she made the point to reach out and make me feel comfortable, and I'll never forget that. She was, we bonded from the beginning, you know, and it just shows to her character that she will reach out and touch people, and that's what she does every day. As a mom, as an executive where she works, she's a very hardworking woman, and we appreciate her for what she did.
Thank you. And that ends our recognitions for this evening.
Thank you.
Okay.
And now it's time for a break. We're not going to take our break, but please, if you would like to leave the meeting, you're more than welcome to leave at this time. And I will turn it back over to you for the superintendent's report.
For the superintendent's report, first I want to acknowledge we had a change in our student ambassadors who are participating as board liaisons. So we have Vishwa Cherabuti and Samantha Sweeney. They are both from Groves. Usually we do try to have one from Seaholm, one from Groves, but they are both seniors. So if they don't get an opportunity this time, they won't be able to have an opportunity, but we're excited to have them here today representing the student body. So.
Welcome, very exciting to have you.
Yes, welcome.
Additionally, I wanted to just share a little bit about advocacy that we've done lately. Zach Riley Kelly and I had an opportunity to spend our day in Lansing today, and the purpose of our visits in Lansing was primarily to talk about the use of bond and sinking fund money and the definition of technology in the current bills. The bills were written in the 1970s, and so technology looks very different now than it did in the 70s. And so we were advocating that we be allowed to use bond and sinking funds for a broader use for technology in terms of subscription and iCloud purchases as well. One of the examples that we used is tonight. In front of you, you're going to see that we're asking for a refresh in our data server. 5 years ago, we purchased the data server that we have now through bond funds as well as a subscription for the next 5 years. Well, the subscription is now expiring. Could we get another 1 or 2 years out of that data, that server? We probably could, but we are not able to purchase the subscriptions out of bond unless we also purchase a new data server. So that restraint is not helpful for school districts, and maybe not the most efficient way that we would like to use funds. Additionally, when we think about our Blue Point systems which are systems in our schools that allow us to, staff and students to pull in the case of, unfortunate case of the active shooter, that those stations are allowable purchases under bond, but not the subscriptions once you're no longer buying something physical. And so we were really encouraged because we do have some legislators who are interested in co-sponsoring a bill. And we believe that we have bipartisan support on that. And with fingers crossed, we will have a double bill, one in the House and one in the Senate. So it was a really, really encouraging meeting today. And I don't know, Zach, if you want to add anything to that.
No, I think you covered it well. I was very surprised by how positive the reception was from all the different representatives that we met with on both sides of the aisle. It seemed like a common sense solution that everybody is really interested in taking up to advocate on behalf of schools. So we're really excited to see where this could go next.
That's very good to hear.
Yeah.
Very encouraging.
And this is a legislative fix that won't just help Birmingham Public Schools, but all schools within Michigan. And so that's a really important point. While we were there, we had the opportunity to also share that there is a section in the governor's proposed budget, Section 111, that would prohibit public schools from accepting tuition from students. As you know, we as a district do allow students from outside of our district to attend through tuition-based means. And so this would disenfranchise those families and not allow us to accept any other students who are tuition-based. And so we were able to share our discontent with that and hope that they asked for some additional information about numbers, and we're hoping to share that broader information with legislators so that that can be worked out of the proposed budget. Just recently, Trustee Holcomer and I were also in Washington, D.C. We were advocating for education. We had the opportunity to talk about cybersecurity, but also IDEA. For those of you who may not know, IDEA is the protections that the federal government gives for students who have an IEP or a 504. This is the 50th anniversary of the passage of IDEA, and the federal government promised to fund IDEA to 40% for all schools across the country. Currently, on average, the average school in Michigan gets only 10.3%, so a far cry from the 40%. In our district, we are not funded to the tune of about $7 million a year. And so we had the opportunity to discuss that. There is going to be another symposium in DC from Michigan on April 29th, and we are looking for parents to possibly go to advocate for IDEA. And you do want to share anything about the advocating and, because I don't want to speak.
I was going to do it during board comments,
Okay,
so.
okay. And so we also had the opportunity to share our concerns about the executive orders and the impact that that may have on public education as well. I want to also share that our VWE Labs memorandum of agreement came in last night. We are sending that over to legal, and then once we hear back from legal, I'll be bringing it in front of this body. Just to remind you, the VWE Labs is a grant that we're receiving from Volkswagen to have labs, fabrication labs, which really ties in emergent technologies, 3D printers, robotics, renewable energy, teaching kids essential skills that we're going to have in 7 of our elementaries and our MBCS. The reason it's going to be in 7 of our elementaries and not all 8 is because currently Bingham Farms is going under construction, and so they don't have the space right now. But Volkswagen has assured us that they're going to do another round and that we will be able to add Bingham Farms into that next round once construction is completed. We are also partnering with a neighboring district, because that was one of the things that that is a requirement of the grant, that you partner with a neighboring district. And so I don't know if they've announced yet, so I'm not going to share what district that is, but more to come on that. And then the last thing that I just want to share is that, we just finished our Anxious Generation book study. We are having a culminating event on March 11th at 7 p.m. here at the EAC. The Rotary Club has graciously given us a grant to pay for the speaker that is going to be presenting that evening, but it is all around how to keep students safe in this digital environment, especially with social media, phones, and just as a reminder, The Anxious Generation is a book generally about how the excessive phone use of students, especially those under the 8th grade, can cause anxiety and depression. So we invite anyone, whether you read the book or not, to come out to that event March 11th. Is there any questions for me?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now we will move to board comment. Trustees, does anyone have any board comment? Before public comment.
Hi.
Trustee Hokumer?
I'll be quick. So Dr. Roberson already mentioned February 2nd through the 4th, we had the opportunity to attend the National School Board Association's Advocacy and Equity Conference, and we heard a lot of great speakers, including Bernie Sanders, which he was very funny, and as well as many people who have spent their lives advocating for public education. And so we heard a lot of wonderful, personal stories about, in particular, what was the actress's name?
Holly Robinson Peete.
Holly Robinson Peete, who became quite an advocate for special needs when her own child was born with autism spectrum disorder. So we also had great breakout sessions about AI in classrooms, community engagement. I know you attended one about math.
Yes.
Math curriculum. So it was great. And then we did spend time on the Hill meeting, if not with our representatives, with their staffers. And our very Michigan-specific topics were full funding of IDEA, universal meals, and even though Michigan currently is funding that, obviously we would like the federal government to pay for universal meals as well, cybersecurity, mental health, school safety. So it's always an amazing conference, and being able to be with so many other people who are passionate about advocating for public education is heartwarming. So that's my update.
Thank you both for representing us.
Yes. I have one.
Trustee Joseph? Okay.
When we attended the GRC meeting for the month of February, on February 19th, there was a few things that were on the agenda. One of the things was the House Appropriations Subcommittee on the School Aid of Michigan will begin meeting in the coming weeks to hold hearings on the governor's budget and develop their own versions. And some of the things that went already passed or in the process of passing, as you're aware of, obviously some of them are in the news, like the minimum wage, which modifies the hourly rate, as well as the benefits and the sick time requirement for employees. Let's see. And then other things that being discussed is possible road funding plans where there could be gasoline sales tax revenue to help the roads construction. And some of the proposals from the governor was 10,000 per pupil foundation, or increasing the weighted funds at risk, increased literacy funds, among other things. Besides that, I also attended the virtual winter academy that's held every year by the MASB. There was possible of 6 courses, I think 6 of them, so it was fun. They actually finished like at 9:30 p.m. on a Friday and Saturday. What a way to spend Friday night and Saturday night, but it's okay.
Thank
It
you.
was bad weather.
Thank you.
I have a few comments.
Sure.
Okay, it's actually been a pretty busy time. January 17th, I joined Ms. Imperio and Caitlin Billups to judge the BCS spelling bee. It was really fun. It was really well run, and the kids did a great job. I think I knew almost all the words, So Zach and 2 of our wonderful media specialists, Ann Truesdell and Carrie Betts, they ran a great book club for the anxious generation. So I attended very much as a parent, but couldn't help but notice the fact that I was a board member in there too. But I really enjoyed meeting the parents who attended, especially at our last meeting, which was in person. So a few of our schools, I've noticed, have already completed or are in process on their own book clubs on this book. And obviously, the phones and the social media, it's top of mind for a lot of us. I mean, people are having these conversations all the time. And I just read today in the Detroit News that apparently the governor is going to be asking legislators to introduce some legislation to ban or limit cell phones in schools next year. So I thought it would be great for the full board to talk about this sometime in a future meeting. There's just a lot going on there. Let's see, February 4th, I attended the webinar presented by MASB and MASA on recent executive orders as well as school funding issues. MASB has already sent out the FAQ and the presentation slides. The key takeaway was school districts really should be reaching out to local council if they have any questions at all about how state and federal laws might be in conflict at this point. And I'm happy to share my notes with anybody. The Finance Committee meets every month. We just met before this meeting. Obviously, we discussed the second budget amendment. And Mr. Teratuta and Dr. Roberson are obviously very much looking forward to preparing our next budget and all the hard work that comes along with it. I also took a couple of classes at MASB's Winter Institute. I'm going after the finance certification, so I took a couple of their finance classes. Let's see. I also took a MASB seminar on My School Data, the website, last week. It is a wealth of information, and I'll admit I didn't know too much how to use it. So now that I know better how to navigate it, I'll be looking up some more data. It's great. So it also reminded me to look back at a slide deck from a data foundations class I took at MASB when I was a new board member 2 years ago. So just all these reminders about how important it is to, get the data, see the data, get it presented in a useful way. And then finally, Ms. Imperial was kind enough to get me access to our Wit and Wisdom curriculum that we're piloting for K through 8. So I spent my midwinter vacation poring over the curriculum, which was really fun. A lot of work, but really fun. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Trustee Zamet. Trustees, anything else? I think I just, now that we're meeting publicly, because I shared this at our retreat, the Birmingham Education Foundation held their bash earlier this month and raised $140,000 that will all go back to teacher grants for all of our schools. The very next day was the dog show, so we had 30 for the Birmingham Youth Assistants, and there were 35 dogs. It was on Channel 4. It was a great event hosted by Birmingham Youth Assistants. Also, youth and service applications are now out, and that is also through Birmingham Youth Assistants. So I strongly encourage anyone to nominate or recommend any high school or middle schooler who is involved in the community to apply for Youth and Service Awards. Anything else, trustees? Okay. Now we'll move into public comment. Before we begin public comment, I will just read our public comment policy. Because the Birmingham Board of Education values public meetings and not just meetings in public, we welcome public comment on school issues. Most comments can be concisely stated in 3 minutes, and the board respectfully asks that comments remain focused on the topic or issue and not on a specific personnel. We welcome your comments but cannot discuss nor debate items not on the agenda. When asked to discuss non-agenda items, we can share facts but not engage in discussion. We need to follow laws regarding public notice on issues and be aware that other community members may have interest in the topic but without proper notice may not be present to contribute. So with that being said, I'd like to invite Stephanie Jones to the podium. Just gonna move your little wheel here.
Good evening. My name is Stephanie L. Jones, and I have a son in BPS special education. First, I want to share 3 statements made about my son. They were not by BPS staff members, but other people who I know. Number 1, I have the most respect in the world for Stephanie and Robert. They can't go anywhere or do anything. I couldn't do it. I would have to give him up. I couldn't keep him. Number 2, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry he's that way. Number 3, it's just sad that he has to be autistic. Everybody wants the perfect baby, but you just have to work with what you got, Stephanie. Sounds cruel, huh? Take a deep breath and let it sink in. Now, have you ever heard the saying, actions speak louder than words? Because despite those statements hurting, let me tell you what happened at BPS that cut to the soul. Number 1, being told that my graduating son couldn't attend the 5th grade trip because there was no staff support. Number 2, how about being at 5th grade graduation and watching every child walk in but mine? Watching every parent stand up and cheer for their child when mine wasn't even allowed in the room. Watching my husband get up and walk out with tears in his eyes. They said it was because a kid diagnosed with severe autism and processing sensory disorder was a little riled up that day. Number 3, this is the Harlem Boys 5th grade graduation picture. You know who's not there? My son. He was left out. No excuse. But guess what? That's not it, because his class is nowhere to be found in the yearbook either. This isn't about we're sorry. These weren't mistakes. This is a culture. And I will be here every month of every year until it's fixed. This is one of the wealthiest school districts in the state. No, our kids will not be your next sports star or CEO, but they deserve the best. Birmingham should be the gold standard. And this is not about the teachers, the paras, and support staff. This is about the decisions you make at the board and executive level. I have been told that I will make enemies and that I will now be vilified for standing up for my son and all the kids in special education. Well, I say to you tonight that perhaps I have come to Birmingham Public Schools for such a time as this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Next, I'd like to invite Katie Szymanski to the podium.
Hello. I'm so sorry. My name is Katie Szymanski, and I'm here as a proud Seaholm graduate, Birmingham Public Schools teacher, and mom. I've had the pleasure of enjoying our early childhood program the last 2 years as a mom at Pembroke and at Greenfield. We've had great teachers, great community school organizers, and classmates. I have my undergraduate degree in early childhood education and a master's in public school administration. So I have always been a huge proponent and advocate of early childhood education. My child with a fall birthday is the perfect candidate for junior kindergarten. When we began the enrollment process after filling out the interest survey, we were met with conflicting information and frustrating dead ends that all led to the fact that junior kindergarten would be offered at every school except for Greenfield. Out of 8 elementary schools, every school will offer junior kindergarten to their families except for Greenfield. 7 schools get the chance to build community with their young families. 7 schools get the chance to offer a proven benefit to their families. 7 schools have families that don't have to worry about transportation from school to school, but not Greenfield. When we look at equity and inclusion, we know that this is wrong. When we look at the population that Greenfield serves, we know this is wrong. When we talk to families and we hear their experiences, we know that this is wrong. Junior kindergarten is an essential service to all families in our district. And to make families choose between junior kindergarten at a school outside of their neighborhood or send their child to kindergarten when they aren't ready is wrong. When I bring this up to various leadership personalities in the district, I'm always met with the same answer. It's about numbers. If Greenfield doesn't have the numbers, then why, when I click on the junior kindergarten link on the website, am I met with the message that the cohort is full and cannot accept additional kids? If there are families that still want to register, why can't they be offered a spot at Greenfield? I see a huge need for junior kindergarten at Greenfield. I see how our families would gain an additional year of support from the amazing staff and community there. I see how my own child would benefit as well. As a mom who knows that junior kindergarten is the smartest choice for my young 5-year-old, I'm met with a huge challenge. Do I send him to another elementary school away from his current teachers and friends where he's expected to form community and leave after a year? Or do I send him to kindergarten even though he's not ready so he can remain at his current school? How do I explain that to him, that he will move to a new school with new friends for 1 year? I'm not the only parent left with this choice and this struggle. Many parents in his preschool class are concerned about constantly uprooting their children. The answer to these inequities is to offer junior kindergarten at all 8 elementary schools, year after year. Greenfield is a phenomenal school that has an empty room to fill with young 5-year-olds who need an extra year before they begin kindergarten. I hope you consider taking the steps to make this happen for some of the youngest community members that we serve. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I invite Ann Roberts to the podium.
Hi. And my mom taught in the district, Diana McComas, for many, many years. I have a lot of respect for the district, and I'm very excited to have my child has been at Greenfield for 2 years in preschool, and I'm in the same position in that deciding, do I send my child to a different school? She did receive a spot at Beverly in one of the families that got in there. I know there's others on the wait list. In Beverly, the program is wonderful, but it's a matter of having my child get a new art teacher, a new gym teacher, a new cafeteria, junior kindergarten, so they can learn that new space. It's one of the perks. And I feel that sending them to different schools is just really taking away a lot of those positive benefits. And I think I have to consider, do I then pull her and send her to a smaller preschool for another year and pay that out of pocket? But that's not, I don't want to leave the district, and I would like to stay at Greenfield, and I would like that to be considered, and I would like another look to be taken at families on the wait list, and even for the website to currently be changed to say we're accepting new families, because when I did the interest form, it was maybe 5 questions. Do you want a spot in junior kindergarten? I didn't realize it was a part of the registration. Many families didn't realize it was part of the registration. Now, in order for families to register, they have to go on the website where it says, oh, we're full, but you can submit an application, which is putting in like your tax records, everything, like all of that information to apply for that spot, and that is probably turning a lot of families away. So I would like another look to be taken at that, and hopefully a junior kindergarten to be at Greenfield for next year to build that community and bring more families to Greenfield. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I'd like to invite now Betsy McDaniel.
Good evening. My name is Betsy McDaniel. I'm a proud parent of 3 children in this district. My 9-year-old and 4-year-old currently attend Greenfield Elementary, and my 2-year-old will be starting preschool at Greenfield in the fall. I am also a Birmingham school graduate, having attended Bingham Farms, Berkshire, and graduated from Groves. My mother dedicated over a decade as the CSO at Bingham Farms, and I have been an active parent volunteer, including serving as the vice president of the PTA at Bingham. I am here tonight because Greenfield Elementary is the only school in the district that does not offer a junior kindergarten program, and that decision is hurting families. Greenfield has the space, the staff support, and the desire to host junior kindergarten. There is no logistical reason why this program should not be offered at Greenfield. Forcing Greenfield families to send their 4- and 5-year-olds to another school undermines the entire purpose of junior kindergarten. This program is meant to help young students adjust to their elementary school, its routines, its teachers, its behavioral expectations, so they can have a smooth transition into kindergarten. But that transition is disrupted if they are forced to start in one building and then move to another with new staff, new friends, and a new building. It's confusing for young children and frustrating for parents. On top of that, the sign-up process for junior kindergarten has been confusing and unclear. Parents were left scrambling to understand where they were supposed to enroll their children. Now families are being forced to make last-minute, long-term decisions about their child's education. Some families have already chosen to leave the district altogether, which is completely avoidable. I understand that junior kindergarten decisions are often based on enrollment numbers. I believe the interest or potential interest is skewed because of the rollout of the enrollment process. If you cannot add a junior kindergarten program at Greenfield, then I ask you to move the Bingham Farms program to Greenfield. I was a committed parent at Bingham for years, and I left for a reason. The only option given to me was to enroll my 4-year-old back in Bingham Farms because it is our home school. I will not be taking my child back to Bingham. The leadership is ineffective, misguided, and preoccupied with the wrong priorities.
Ms. McDaniel, I'm sorry, we can't comment on personnel. Sorry, that's part of our public policy.
Okay. That's the last part about that. The discipline issues are out of control and the building is poorly maintained. All of those issues aside, Bingham is scheduled to be under construction during the next school year. This is not the school that should be introducing families to Birmingham Public Schools. A child's first experience in a school district shapes how families view their educational future. If families are turned off by their first experience, we are at risk of losing them from the district entirely. Greenfield, on the other hand, is a strong, well-maintained school with clear behavioral expectations and a great learning environment. Moving the junior kindergarten program from Bingham Farms to Greenfield would allow families to send their child to a strong, structured school while keeping future Greenfield students in their home building. Birmingham schools should be setting every student up for success, not making their first year of school more difficult. If you cannot put junior kindergarten at Greenfield because of the numbers, then I implore you to reconsider the decision to leave Greenfield as the school without one. I urge you to take the action on this now before even more families leave the district.
Thank you. This concludes public comment. Next, we'll move into our general consent agenda where we have our personnel report, financial statements, minutes from our organizational meeting and retreat. Could I have a motion to approve Resolution 58, acceptance of our consent agenda?
I move to approve Resolution 58, acceptance of the consent agenda.
Support.
Moved by Colleen, supported by Amy. Are there any questions, trustees? All those in favor of approving Resolution 58, acceptance of the consent agenda, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. And now I will turn it over to Mr. Teratuda for tonight's business services reports.
All right. Wonderful. Good evening, everyone. Let's see. There we are. Okay. Tonight we are going to discuss the Second Amendment to the General Fund. So as a reminder for the board and the public, generally speaking, we adopt an original budget in June for the current fiscal year. And then we'll amend it from time to time as new financial information becomes available, depending on what point it is in the year. So this Second Amendment follows after we have concluded our closeout of last year and had our audit. We have our pupil enrollment count completed and audited from the fall. Our grants have been allocated and carryovers, so a number of items have been updated in our assumptions for this amendment. And tonight, we will only be speaking just on the general fund. So we'll start with general fund revenues. The slide you have in front of you talks about all revenues from 2023-24 actual on the farthest left column through all the different versions of the budget for this current fiscal year. The last column on the right is the change from Amendment 1 to Amendment 2 for the general fund revenues. You'll see that total revenues of the general fund have decreased by $1.89 million. And I'll go into a little bit of detail on each of those revenue categories in the following slides. Local revenue changes, there are a couple items here. So state aid, the foundation we get per pupil provided by the state, is made up of a local piece, which is the tax that we collect on our operating millage, as well as the state then kicking in the excess needed to match up to the foundation amount. Now, it is a bit of a mathematical algorithm, how that works based on your taxable values and your population, your student count, as well as the foundation, and it can shift from local to state depending on how those numbers line up. So this local portion of state aid reduction of $340,000 is really just moving that local portion of tax collections kind of into the state bucket of foundation. Every year, we do apply for a cable grant to supply some of the equipment in the district, whether it's for the broadcast rooms or for here in the boardroom for the live broadcasting. We were not unfortunately awarded that grant this year, so we had carried that number on the budget as a revenue and expenditure of $185,000. Because it is a reimbursable grant, like many of them, if we don't get awarded the grant, we don't spend the money. So we haven't actually spent anything in anticipation of that grant, but this was not in the original or first amended budget because of the timing of when that notification came. And then back in the fall, the board approved an extension of a couple cell tower lease contracts. Both of those came with one-time revenues of $50,000 each. So $108,000 of additional cell tower lease money has been budgeted in the local bucket. A lot more items here in the state revenue side of things. We originally budgeted back in the fall, back in June, about a 40 full-time equivalent student decrease in our enrollment. Fortunately for us, we did actually have quite the opposite. We had a 40 student full-time equivalent increase. So that 80 student delta equates to about $989,000. We did, however, because of an anticipated decrease in enrollment, budget for enrollment stabilization categorical. So the state has this funding set aside for districts experiencing enrollment decline to help soften the blow. We did anticipate receiving some of that money if we had lost students, but because we actually gained students, we are no longer eligible. So even though this is a decrease of revenue, it's really good news because we are, increasing our enrollment. The revision in accounting for the ASD Center program, we had planned to account for this and try and make it easier to follow for readers of our financial statements. So we collect state revenue on behalf of our center program, and then that revenue makes its way into the center program fund. We originally wanted to account for that as a transfer out, so an expenditure of money, and then the revenues were all collected in the general fund. After speaking with our auditors and working through with them, they concluded that the more appropriate accounting treatment is to just assign that revenue into the center fund as it comes in. So even though we're showing $1.89 million decrease of revenues, it really is a matching revenue and expenditure item. So you'll see this when we talk about expenditures as well. 147C, as the board well knows at this point, is the pass-through of the underfunded pension liability. Because the healthcare portion of that liability was fully funded last year, they cut the rate this year by almost 6%. So that amount equates to $6,258,000, but as a pass-through, it is matching revenues with matching expenditures. 147C2 is basically the same thing, except the state says we want to bolster that underfunded liability, put more money into it to keep it in a healthy position. So there is one-time addition of this additional pass-through money of $1.756 million. Again, matching revenues and expenditures. 147A 1 and 2 is retirement offset funding. So we originally budgeted for what we had collected last year. The state, based on its formula for how it determines its allocation to local districts, in recent state aid reporting has provided us an additional $425,000 in that offset funding. And then back in the fall, we budgeted for, in our first amendment, what is colloquially known as the MIPSers money, so that full funding of healthcare piece was then returned to districts in the form of this 147A4 money. Now, we budgeted for most of that back in Amendment 1. Once we had the full allocation after the adoption of Amendment 1, there was an additional $330,000 there. In October, we got a supplemental to our mental health and safety funding, plus finalizing our carryover. That was about $1 million. Our GSRP budget and slots were finalized after the First Amendment. That's $815,000 of additional revenue and expenditures. And then we did budget for 31N, which is mental health professionals, of $300,000, both revenue and expenditures. So usually when you see these grants and those changes, you will also hear me say that they have matching revenues and expenditures. So the expenditure side of things should go a little quicker. Other general fund revenue significant changes. The ISD provides us money from PA 18, that is the countywide millage for special ed services. That allocation update was $294,000. And then other revenue changes that you'll see are one-time transfers in from the stadium fund and a non-bond capital project fund. Now, those funds have been outside the general fund, and they were for prior sales of buildings and lands from land that the district had owned many, many years ago and had sat there for a long period of time. The anticipation was that they would be used for repairs, maintenance, things like that, which the general fund in general has provided for, or the bonds have provided for. But these funds have never been touched despite the operational use of repairs and maintenance. So it was decided that these funds need to actually be put to use and refund the general fund for a lot of those costs in this year. So that's where you'll be seeing those. Moving on to expenditures, the same setup as revenues. Total expenditures from Amendment 1 to Amendment 2 was a decrease of $1.28 million. We do have some changes in wage assumptions. So you heard me talk about GSRP and 31N. So $815,000 and $300,000 respectively increased in those categorical grants. And then after we had concluded our audit, we had identified that our budget to actual wages, our budgeted wages were less than the actual that we had spent for the year. So we did have to make an adjustment to overall wages of $775,000 to properly align the data that we had internally to make sure we are fully accounting for all wages. Changes in benefit assumptions, you heard me talk about 147C1 and 147C2. And then the similar story with the budget to actual for 2024. Our prior methodology for accounting for retirement was based on a function of total gross wages. So historically, total gross or total retirement as a function of wages was about 26%. Budget to actual for '24 was much closer to 30%. So that change was a significant variance of about $3.2 million. So we made that adjustment to align more with how last year's budget to actual went. And then if you take that into consideration, the actual cost of retirement compared to this second amendment for retirement costs, you'll see that they align as a function of wages, and that the true cost year over year is about 4%. Couple other items in general fund expenditures. There was just a change from purchase services to other expenditures, so that arrow on the slide kind of shows you how one of those items moved. The tuition charges, BPS does have a few students that attend out-of-district center programs, and we pay tuition for those. That approximate $2 million just moved from one line, purchase services, to other expenditures, which is the more appropriate accounting method. We do have additional supplemental costs in mental health and safety of $700,000. The cable grant you see again here, and then that ASD transfer out that I mentioned back in the revenue slide is here in the other expenditures as well. So final slide for you. This is the whole picture of revenues and expenditures for the second budget amendment. Our total change in fund balance was a use of fund balance in Amendment 1 of $1.18 million. The change to Amendment 2 is $1.79 million, or an additional use of fund balance of just over $600,000. Anticipated fund balance as a percentage of expenditures is 11.2%, which is still within the board's 10 to 15% policy on fund balance. So with that, that'll conclude the presentation of Amendment 2 in the general fund, and I would open the floor for questions from the board.
Trustees, are there any questions for Mr. Teratuda regarding the amendment of our second amendment of the budget? Anything from the Finance Committee?
I mean, I will just say that we did review this in the Finance Committee. We, as a board and administration, are working very hard to make sure that by 2027, we do have a balanced budget. So we review all of these numbers pretty closely. Obviously, Mr. Teratuda talked about some of the retirement adjustments and, you know, using the correct methodology. We're also very conscious of our expenditures, and, you know, as expenses go up and our fund balance remains the same, it does lower our percentage that is available, and we're also very conscious of that. So, you know, I hope everyone does know that we take great care, and Kevin can tell you ask a lot of questions, and, you know, I think we're gonna get to the balanced budget, but we obviously need to be diligent.
Say, well said. I think you covered it all from Finance Committee.
Trustees, if there's nothing else, could I have a motion, please, for Resolution 59, the general fund amendment? The second general fund amendment, sorry.
I move Resolution 59, General Fund Amendment 2.
Support. Moved by Nicole, seconded by Lori. All those in favor of Resolution 59, the general fund amendment, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
Very good. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. I think I have the next two as well.
You do.
All right.
Resolution 60, Pembroke.
Okay. So the board has in front of them a resolution recommendation to approve the second phase of playground surfacing at Pembroke. So Pembroke has a student, a wheelchair-bound student, and was a decision made by the Bond Oversight Committee to use bond funding as a pilot for additional accessibility. And using a poured rubber surface as opposed to mulch for students with accessibility needs to access playground equipment. So we did approve a first phase of this, and with the leftover funding and based on how that was adjusted, we are starting to implement a second phase to improve additional accessibility. So we talked about this in the Bond Oversight Committee, as well as answered questions there, and the resolution in front of the board is to proceed with the second phase.
Trustees, are there any questions regarding the Pembroke Playground Surfacing Phase 2?
Do you want me to make the motion first?
Oh, sure. Thank you.
Sorry. I move that we consider Resolution 60, purchase of poured rubber playground surface at Pembroke.
Second.
I do have a question. So you said a pilot. So does this mean that, because that was one of my questions, is obviously you never know when you're going to have a child who needs this kind of access. So would this mean that we would then use this as the standard for all our playgrounds?
We certainly want to see how this works in anticipation of a future bond program, as we would consider all of our playgrounds in possible scope and whether or not this is a direction we want to move forward with as a district.
Okay, thank you.
Trustees, any other questions? Moved by Amy, seconded by Luke. All those in favor of Resolution 60, the Pembroke Playground Surfacing Phase 2, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Kevin, Resolution 61, the contract for facility equipment study.
Thank you. The board also has in front of them a resolution for a facility equipment study. So we have, with the 2020 bond, we performed a facility study that was conducted by Plamer and Real Point, where they went through all the buildings in more of a, let's call it a building envelope point of view, so the walls and the flooring and the condition overall, and they sort of touched on equipment as they went through. This recommendation is to actually look deeply at the status of our facilities and our atmospheric controls, the electrical, everything sort of behind walls to get a real feel for what those needs are in this district. That study has never been done prior to that, and as we look potentially into the future for a possible bond, this information would prove valuable in helping us consider what scope may look like. So the funding for this would come from our current bond funding, which is an allowable expense from an opinion of our legal counsel, and we discussed this internally in our bond oversight committee as a recommendation use of owner's contingency in order to make sure that we are properly addressing the long-term needs and responsible stewardship of our district's facility equipment.
Any questions regarding Resolution 61?
Well, I have a question, but again, do you want me to make the motion?
Go ahead.
I move that we consider Resolution 61, contract for a facility equipment study.
Support.
Okay, so you said this is stuff behind the walls. So does this not include like larger things like boilers and?
Oh, absolutely it does.
Oh, it does.
Sorry. Yes, to expand on that, it's basically all the mechanical that runs the buildings.
Okay, so the non-pretty stuff that when it breaks, we have to pay for.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay.
And something that came during the bond committee about this topic was for a future study session to review the 10-year capital campaign, because our cabinet and most trustees, with the exception of Lori, Amy, and I, have never seen it before, and we are in a 10-year capital campaign. So just to review and maybe amend because things have probably changed dramatically from 5 years ago when that was implemented. So anything else regarding this contract? All those in favor of Resolution 61, the contract for facility equipment study, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now I will move to the technology report and turn our meeting over to Mr. Riley Kelly for Resolution 62.
Thank you, Madam President. This is the resolution that Dr. Roberson alluded to earlier in her superintendent's report. This is the refresh of our data center equipment. This would be funded through the 2020 bond using savings from a variety of different lines. This is an essential piece of equipment that is required to operate our district on a daily basis. We did do an RFP process, and we are recommending going with the low bidder, which is Avalon Technologies, for a total RFP cost of $670,896.45.
Trustees, can I have a motion for Resolution 62, award contract for bid package T13 data center refresh?
I move for Resolution 62. Award contract for bid package T13 data center refresh.
Support.
I do have a question. With our current data center that we have, is there any availability to sell it or anyone else that would take it off our hands given we can't use it anymore?
We will certainly try that. We have started, since I've taken this position, selling old technology equipment. That's not something we've done historically in the past, but we have had moderate success doing that. So we will absolutely explore what kind of market there is.
Or even repurposing for maybe some training or anything
That's
else.
exactly. If we can't sell it, it will become extra stuff that we'll train on and sandbox and play with for sure.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sir.
Any other questions? All those in favor of Resolution 61, please raise your hand and say aye. I'm sorry,
Aye.
Resolution 62, excuse me.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Now we move into other. We have Resolution 63, our board goals that we've been working on for the past 2 months. So Amy worked on it over break. I know we spoke during our retreat of adding in some language in our student achievement goal. So the 5 goals were in your board packet. Could I have a motion to approve Resolution 63 board goals?
I move to consider Resolution 63, annual goals for the Birmingham Board of Education.
Support. Moved by Trustee Zamet, support by Trustee Spencer. Do I have any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of our new board goals, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
I want to thank Jen and Amy for working so hard on the revision of those goals. It's not always easy to get 7 people in consensus. I appreciate your work.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for spending your break doing this and not traveling.
Really wasn't my whole break, but.
And last, for tonight's meeting, we have the MASB Board of Directors election. Trustee Holcomer, would you like to add anything about this thing that you are on?
I will just say, so MASB's Region 8 encompasses 3 counties, Oakland, Macomb, and parts of Wayne. So currently, all of the sitting representatives are from Oakland County. So when I was interviewing and reviewing emails, I was really trying to, look for some geographical diversity in the seats. I will say OCSBA, Oakland County School Board Association, we did interviews. We offered them to all 8 candidates. 4 of the candidates were able to interview with us, and we were very flexible on the timing, so it wasn't for lack of trying. So I sort of narrowed it down to those 4 candidates, quite honestly, because those were the ones I had a sense of. I will say that I felt that many of the candidates did not adequately express what I think representing MASB's board is really actually about, which is not about student achievement, because MASB's constituents or members are school board sitting trustees, and their goals are to provide professional development for us, to help us be better board members, which might indirectly lead to student achievement, but, and then also to help us advocate at both the state and national level by providing us with information as well as tools to do so. So all of that being said, I did not feel that there were a lot of candidates who expressed a desire to actually work within that system. Paul Cullen, in my mind, did the best job of that. However, he is from Oakland County and does not help with any geographical diversity. But, I mean, that's me, that's my thoughts. I'd love to hear what anyone else had to think.
But I feel the same way. I mean, I looked at all the 8 candidates, and the majority were from Oakland. We had a couple, I think 2 from Macomb, maybe 1 from Wayne.
Roderick
One from
is
Wayne.
from Dearborn Heights.
And I think geographical diversity representation is very important. I mean, it's a huge region. It's a very big region. So I feel the same way that you do.
Well, I agree with you both. I agree with you, Amy, on a lot of what you said, but the one thing I disagree about is the geographical diversity. I just don't care. I mean, it's a region. The region is what it is, and I just looked at the candidates and how they presented themselves. I read all their bios. Some of them emailed us, and then, like you said, only 4 of them did the interviews, and I truly thought Paul far and away understood what it meant to be on this board of directors. So even though that means everybody's from Oakland County, I mean, if that was a requirement for them, they would make something just for Oakland County. So that just didn't bother me.
But what do you mean you don't care about geographical diversity?
We're all part of the same region.
We are. And
Yes.
so once you become a director, you are representing the region, whether you live in it or not.
Right. That's what I mean.
Yeah. I do. It's not, like, it's not going to be the hill I die on.
I really thought that he understood what it meant to be on that board of directors and really what it meant for us to have our membership in MASB and the things that we expect of them, taking all of these professional development classes, being able to call them up and ask questions from their legal department, things like that. I mean, they're a professional organization. We count on them for member services, and I really felt like he was far and away the best candidate who understood that.
I understand that, but I also want a candidate that is going to understand other counties than Oakland, who's going to, represent. And I know we're all part of one region, but you have to have understanding of what other districts have. We're a rich county, Oakland County, and the other 2 are not. And so you got to, I think, with equity, represent all.
That's just a point of disagreement.
But do you have another candidate who you felt like fulfilled the other requirements?
I didn't. I looked at Scott Wallace, I think his name was, from Macomb. And he sent a couple of emails. I read them. But I don't know. I mean, I'm not decided.
I just want to say that I feel, the people who submitted their candidacy are the people who submitted it. It was open to everybody who wants to submit, I guess, and these are the people that we got, right? So the majority do reside in Oakland County. So, forgive me for saying this, but I feel selecting the best candidate is usually the best option,
Agreed.
no matter where they live.
Okay, to be fair, only 2 are from Oakland County.
Oh, okay.
So Anisha Hannah and Paul Cook. We have the rest from Wayne and McKinney.
Luke, did you have a preference on?
Yes, well, I mean, I do think that Paul Collin stood out to be the best person. Oh, Paul Collin
Thank you.
stood out as the best candidate from.
Jason. Thank you. Jason or Nicole, do you have thoughts on who you would like to put forward?
I think that I would agree with the majority of the board. I looked through all of the candidates and read all of their statements. I do think that a lot of weight goes into the fact that 4 of them were able to make it, especially when you were so flexible with time. So, I would be supportive of Paul Cullen as our representative as well.
I am the same, Paul Collin.
Thank you. And likewise. So there isn't a I feel the same.
Yeah, I mean, I do think Tracy.
I was just going to ask her. There's no resolution, do we just?
I was just going to do it as a motion.
Okay.
Okay.
What do you motion to do?
I motion that we support or provide our vote for Paul Cullen as the Region 8 Director for MASB's election.
Second. So moved by Amy. Right. So we don't need to.
We can just say aye.
All those in favor of putting forward Paul Cullen for MASB Board of Directors, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Trustees, do we have any other comments this evening? If not, we will adjourn at 8:17.